India has started world's largest mass vaccination program, and it has been to a smooth start to begin with, barring a few cases where it's been registered that there are some adverse reaction, but authorities have said there's nothing worrying about those findings. Now, along with this feat in another major achievements, India will start supplying COVID-19 vaccines to friendly countries like Bhutan, Maldives, Bangladesh, Nepal, Myanmar and Seychelles starting today. And few other countries too will get its consignment after the confirmation of necessary regulatory clearances. The Government of India has received several requests for the supply of Indian manufactured vaccines from the neighbouring countries and key partners ever since it announced the manufacturing of vaccines to fight back the COVID-19 pandemic. It is also important to note that even during the pandemic period, when the pandemic was at its highest in 2020, India worked to boost its pharmaceutical production, especially of hydrochloroquine and paracetamol and of course remdesivir, to respond to growing global demand. So how important is this for India to supply the vaccines to the countries, and besides vaccines, will India also be in a position to give them the technical know-how? To discuss further on this issue, we are joined with three guests: Professor Y.K. Gupta, he is National Scientific Coordinator, PVPI; Urvashi Prasad, Public Policy Specialist, Niti Aayog, that's a government think tank; and Dr. Puneet Mishra, he is co-investigator, Covaxin from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi. Well, many thanks for joining us, sir. Professor Gupta, let me start with you here. We have been discussing about the India's prowess in terms of the vaccination, and in my last meeting with you on India Fight Back, we were exploring the merits of vaccination and how we have to fight, or for that matter, how there is a requirement for communication about the effectiveness of vaccine. Now, going a step further, as we have started off a mass vaccination program, how do you look at a development of India supplying vaccines to several countries? There are a few countries where the consignment will leave today or possibly must have left, and there are a few countries where it will reach once they have got a necessary clearance from their own regulators. Professor Gupta.
It's a matter of great pride for each and every citizen of the country, and particularly scientists and a pharmaceutical sector, that India in a very record short time has been successful in making the vaccines for COVID, which is totally made in India, which is Bharat Biotech, and also the vaccine which was developed by Oxford and AstraZeneca, and now being sent in large volume, being manufactured by Serum Institute. And not only that, we are making quality vaccines for our citizens, but we have made vaccines which will go to all our neighboring countries, the friendly countries, as you mentioned rightly, to the Bhutan, Bangladesh, Maldives, and all those neighboring countries. So this indicates two things. One is the competence of our scientists in making quality medicines, and now quality vaccine. The scientists which can arise to any situation, and the capacity of Indian pharmaceutical sector to make the self-sufficiency and also to meet the requirement. Now, it's important to know that each country has its own stringent regulatory system. And unless they examine each and every data from our country's drug or the vaccine for safety and efficacy, purity, they will not give an order for a single thing. Now, this is the request is coming from them, which testifies that yes, we have now the word pharmacy. Now India has been proven earlier also the major supplier of vaccine globally, the polio vaccine, the measles vaccine, and in fact 2/3 of the vaccines are produced in India, and the major exporter is the vaccine. The India is also called as a pharmacy of the world because we from pre-independence, when each and every drug used to be imported drug, now we are the major exporter of pharmaceutical products globally. In US, such a large quantity of Indian drugs, in spite of isolated news which are blown out of proportion, but still, if you just see the majority of the Americans, the Europe, the Africa, and these countries, they buy Indian pharmaceutical products. This cannot happen unless we meet our quality and we meet cost. So we are in India are known for making quality product, affordable cost, and the meeting not only our requirement but treating the patient at large, from the affluent to the population which is poorly or say not so rich, or poor countries, middle income countries, at an affordable price. That's the most important thing.
That's important. Yes, yes, yes. Certainly, that's most important. And also, like you highlighted about our manufacturing sector, pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. Let me get you here, Urushi Prasad from Niti Aayog. Ma'am, India have seen world's second highest COVID case load. So how we will balance the domestic requirement as well as the international demand? Urvashi.
Yes, so throughout this pandemic, India has tried to help countries in its neighborhood after we have secured our domestic requirements. So if you would remember that, when we were in February, March, our domestic supplies of, basic personal protective equipment, N95 masks, ventilators, all of that was also a big challenge for us, even to meet the requirements within the country. Now, it is through the intensified efforts of the government, through scaled up public-private partnerships, that we actually managed to ramp up supply of all of that in a very short span of time. And soon we realized that we could meet our domestic requirements, but we could also then go a step further to help countries in our neighborhood. So that is when we actually reached out, and we have supplied various kinds of medicines and equipment throughout this period. Now, coming to the vaccine, we have to remember that the COVID vaccine is also a global public good at the end of the day. Because in a pandemic, a single COVID case anywhere in the world is a threat to the rest of the world. That is the nature of how infectious diseases and pandemics work. So in that context, the fact that we are reaching out to our neighborhood, we are trying to support them in their efforts to battle this pandemic and bring an end to it, is definitely very important. I think everyone must be rest assured that this will not happen at the cost of our own requirements. The government will ensure that there are adequate doses, there is adequate supply of the vaccine to meet our domestic needs. But additionally, if we can help other countries in our neighborhood, then I think that is a very important move and a very important gesture, because ultimately there's a lot of commonalities that we have with our neighborhood. And it's not just supplying the vaccine, but we can also provide a lot of know-how in terms of managing the cold chain, in terms of digital technologies. How do we roll that out? We can also share that with those countries. So I think it's a very, very important move.
Well, well said, Urvashi, representing the think tank of the government, Niti Aayog, and extremely valid point that each and every case, even a single case in a world, needs to be addressed. And here, any country for that matter would do good to address it. Dr. Puneet Mishra, let me have you here in the show. Many thanks for joining us, sir. I know you've been listening for quite some time. Sir, I mean, if we go in the past, I know we've had a history of several mass vaccination programs as well. In terms of the vaccination, and certainly this is one of the largest immunization program. In the past as well, has there been precedents where we have supplied our scientific know-how to the world in terms of vaccination? And what were those instances?
Yes, as Dr. Gupta and then Dr. Urvashi have pointed out about the Indian pharmaceutical industry, and then about the vaccine and our technical know-how about the knowledge which we have shared with the world. we always believe in Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The world is our family. And with that motto, whether it is vaccines, whether it is some other drugs, or it is technical know-how, we always share our knowledge wherever it is required. As long as you are asking about our experience and help with other countries, yes, we are very huge population, so we have a very great experience of immunizing our children, and that is one of the biggest programs. We have conducted many successful vaccination drives, whether long back it was for the smallpox, which we have eradicated from all over the world. And that has been achieved long back. At that time, I mean, India was not in that good state in terms of, development and other things. After that, we have successfully completed, the polio drive. All the children, they are vaccinated, and it has been eliminated from India. So all those kind of, experience which we have gained during those programs, they have been shared with whether it is WHO or with other agencies and the countries who required our help to conduct large-scale program. Even during COVID, you can very well imagine that in our priority group, where we are going to vaccinate 30 crore people in, say, 6 months' time, I mean, that is the equivalent of population of many countries. US have around 33, 34 crore population. So, how huge program we are going to conduct, and it is not only the vaccine, but the technical expertise, the people who are going to give the vaccine, to have a software which can, send the SMS to the people, which can generate certificates. So that kind of technical know-how besides the vaccine, that would be useful for other countries. And now we are in position to help other countries, not only with the vaccine, which government of India has started for last few days, where we are supplying vaccine to our neighboring countries, but also technical know-how in terms of the software, in terms of the training to their healthcare workers, in terms of maintaining cold chain, in terms of supplying the cold chain equipment and other logistics.
Right. That's very important, not just the vaccine, but also the technical know-how, the scientific know-how that is important, and that is where India is playing a key role in supplying these expertise to scientific community of the neighboring countries, the countries where we are exporting our vaccines. Professor Gupta, you're also National Coordinator of Pharmacovigilance Program of India. Now, we have seen, as we are starting the mass immunization program, there have been some adverse cases, and we discussed it over the period of couple of days about these reactions. So dispelling any sort of rumors about it is also important, besides manufacturing or having a robust pharmaceutical industry. How important does it get to have a thorough and foolproof communication about the efficacy of the medicine or a vaccine we are supplying? Professor Gupta?
I think we must understand two important things. The process of vaccine introduction in the country, and that is done when the animal data or the preclinical data, what you call as a non-clinical data, is subjected to intense scrutiny by the experts and by DCGI, means the regulator of the country. And they go into great detail of each data. And the committee of experts and DCGI come to the conclusion that this product is safe and has an efficacious as far as the animal data is concerned or the preclinical data is concerned. Only on that basis, the first in human use and the preclinical to clinical is permitted. It, however, does not mean that there will be no adverse event. But what is assessed is the risk versus benefit. If the benefit much overweighs than the possible risk, then the drug is introduced into the market. Now, in this situation, this is still under clinical trial, or this is still under phase 3 trial, one drug. But then we estimated that the benefit which in such emergency situation is much higher than the negligible or minuscule risk factor, it was introduced. And the safety valve is the possible adverse reaction, adverse effect, which may happen are very minor because it is well tested. It can be headache, it can be rash, it can be some swelling, it can be mild fever, or in rarest of rare situation, it can be anaphylaxis, for which there is a emptying number of the supporting drill is in place. That means if something happens, everything is in place to take care of. Therefore, the apprehension should not be there at all. It should not be there at all.
Absolutely.
The risk, even if you breathe too much of air, you drink too much of water, there can be some possible risk. But this is the risk, acceptable risk. So that is what apprehension in taking vaccine is totally unfounded, should not be done. And my message to all educated, literate, scientific, and analytical mind is to dispel this vaccine, or what is called mistrust or distrust or hesitancy, whatever you call it as, among those people who are being influenced by what we say our type of key opinion leaders. And this, every citizen who is educated, understand, is a key opinion leader, must therefore tell very clearly that there is no risk in that. That is important thing. And that is why confidence of international bodies, international regulators, the globals, the population, the global leadership, global scientists is in Indian vaccine. Why there is a need to have apprehension from our own scientists? I think this is totally unacceptable. And I must say, India has shown that not only this is a pharmacy of the world, but this is innovation dependent. Innovation has been the hub, central hub of last couple of years, and our Prime Minister has repeatedly saying innovation, innovation. So many startups, department